How do you make hard, painful, ghastly, painful decisions to ensure that you can move forward? And you know, we've had this discussion. The only way behavior changes is through pain, not pleasure.
What can we learn from a military leader with over 42 years experience in military and corporate settings applicable for today's leaders? James Spider Marks, a West Point grad, spent over 30 years in the U.S. Army, holding every command position from infantry platoon leader to commanding general. He was a senior intelligence officer for Joint Task Force Los Angeles during the 1992 Los Angeles riots and served as a strategist on the personal staff of the Chief of Staff of the Army. He later served as the senior intelligence officer in the Balkans and South Korea and as the senior intelligence officer for the coalition forces during the Iraq War. He culminated his career as the commanding general of the U.S. Army Intelligence Center and School at Fort Huachuca, Arizona. Hope I got that right. And he later served as the president and CEO of Global Linguist Solutions, which is a private company that provided linguistics services to the U.S. military in Iraq. He became an on-air national security, military, and intelligence contributor to CNN and an adjunct professor at Georgetown University. He's also a wonderful thinker about leading powerfully, and I'm happy to call him my friend. There was so much in my interviews with Spider that we decided to publish in two parts, keeping true to our short-form focus for this podcast. In part one, you'll learn that real leadership requires hard things and choices, and being willing to make sacrifices for the us or we. The notion of vulnerability is important in a leader's toolkit, especially with all the uncertainty around us in the environment. You'll learn the power of eliminating blame from failure. And you'll learn Spider's ideas about what really matters is behaviors and actions, not words, promises, or even principles unless they're acted upon. There's a lot here, which is continued in part two. I hope you enjoy my conversation with General Spider Marks. General Spider Marks, I appreciate you taking the time with me to talk about a topic that you and I have danced around the edges of a few times, that of leading other people. And it gives me a great pleasure to talk to you. Would you take a moment to introduce yourself as you would like to be known?
Foster, I spent my life in the military, both as a child. My father was in the military forever. His father was in the military forever. So it was a family business. The shingle just moved from granddad to son to it was clear to me that I wanted to be a soldier. Going to West Point was a good, clear choice to me. I went to West Point in the middle of the Vietnam War, had other options, but no, this is the path I wanted to be on. And then spent over 30 years in the military, loved every second of it. And then you reach the end of it and spent my time on the horizon of that organization. I was only at the headquarters in the Pentagon of that for 1 year. I wanted to be with soldiers. That's where the creative juices were. That's where the risk could be taken. That's where the freedom to maneuver intellectually and physically and to come up with solutions was encouraged. And then as you get more senior in that organization, your obligation is to go find those creative ideas. You were just talking about the creative juices. I would argue that I'm not particularly creative, but I think I am innovative, which is my obligation as an innovator is to find what's creative and then let it blossom, help it blossom. Go find the time, go find the money, go find the advocacy, go find the place where it's going to stick, and then let that thing just grow and do everything in our power to make that happen. So that's how I spent my time in the military. Loved every second of it. But at the end, I was prepared to do something else because I felt I was at cross currents to some of the senior leadership in the military. I'd just come back from combat. I had some scar tissue from combat, things that we had failed to do as a military, which was our fundamental task. And I felt like our senior leaders, I was one of those senior leaders. I was disappointed with what some of the things that we had failed to do, yet it was obvious and we had identified them early on, like, let's get this going.
Yeah.
And so I made a decision to retire from the military. My bride, Marty, would have preferred I stick around a few more years, but I was prepared to move on to something else. And certainly, as you understand, the world has a much broader aperture moving forward than it does backwards. Unfortunately, a lot of people spend a lot of time on a very large rear-looking aperture, and you wonder, where did that come from?
So true.
Post life as a soldier, I've been on this rather circuitous path, finding opportunities where I could assist others realize their goals. Because I had great help in the military, I had great mentors. I was hopeful, and in a very humble way, but I was hopeful that I could help others realize their goals. In fact, Foster, the other day, somebody asked me the question, why'd you stay in the Army for so long? And I said, very simply, I had no question in my mind when I showed up every day that I had purpose.
Yeah.
In fact, two things. You show up and you have purpose. Zero debate. I had purpose every day of my life. In uniform and in my life. And so this individual said, well, what's your purpose now? Great question. And I said, well, it's to help you and others realize what your purpose is. In other words, the way I describe that is, as a young athlete growing up as a young jock,
yeah,
was very good as a teammate. I was never stellar. I was not a baller. I was not the guy everybody went to. But I was the guy that everybody went to when something had to be done on the field and you didn't care about who got the credit. I mean, I just fell into that role. I loved it. As a team player, I did exceptionally well. That's why to this day, I would say I'm not a very good golfer because I'm out there on my own. I've boxed and I've wrestled and I've gotten my ass kicked. I'm out there giving it my best, but I'm kind of looking for somebody who I can tap out.
Yeah.
And nobody's there. I think that's how I would define my purpose, which is I want others to excel and I want to help them try to excel.
So in this crazy environment we find ourselves, and I would use the word unprecedented because it's not, but it's not unprecedented. This is the environment that the people in our organizations, including the military, find themselves in today. What are you seeing as the kind of, when you think about the best leaders that you're aware of today handling all this, what are they doing?
Yeah, great question. I need to say, I don't know that I've seen the best leaders. I've seen some incredibly gifted leaders navigate this in very, very different ways. I'm reminded every day about the 5 generations in the workforce because of my daughters. They all work.
Yeah.
And so you got my generation, my daughter's generation, and one of my daughters is truly a digital native.
Yeah.
And she is totally off, and has been for 5+ years, social media.
Wow.
Our youngest daughter, forget it. Life is not a perception. Life is reality. And I'm tired of everybody else's definition of reality.
Terrific. Wow.
Yeah. Admirable, incredibly admirable. But I'm reminded that I'm at the end of that 5 generations in the workspace. As a matter of routine, my kids are going, Dad, really? Dad, really? Come on, girls. But I think the best leaders who handle that, I don't know that I can describe a person.
Sure. No.
Depending upon, they've all tiptoed around some issues. Let me share an observation from one of my friends, my generation, younger part of my generation, who said he is tired of people providing a balanced view. His view is everything's out of balance. Come on, there's no balanced view, but there's no disputing a fact. And we've heard that, we're fact-based. We know we're going to talk about facts. Well, we don't talk about facts because the facts suddenly have become insulting.
Yeah.
The fact that X is not providing sufficient value in the workspace has now become an assault on her or his ethnicity,
Yep.
political standing,
Yep.
economic placement, et cetera, educational level. And you go, no, those are not relevant. What's relevant is your behavior.
Yeah.
And how do you evaluate behaviors in today's world? It's incredibly difficult. I was with a group of corporate leaders about 4 or 5 months ago. Corporate leaders at the top of their game, men, women, every sort of ethnicity represented, brilliantly talented, embracing, struggling with issues. And one of them asked the question. He said, General, how do you tell somebody in the workspace that they're not doing very well? My immediate response was, wow, you've been doing this for 25 years and you're at the top of and you're asking that question today. And his answer was, yeah, I'm concerned. I know I'm a heartbeat away from some legitimate in somebody else's mind complaint about how I engage with one of my colleagues, one of my subordinates, or one of my peers, or even my boss. We are walking on eggshells, and I never felt like I was on eggshells.
Wow.
And so, you think about it, and people will tell you all the time, I don't feel good about that. The noun feel, or the verb to feel.
Yeah.
But my feelings are shaken by that. Or this is what I think, or my intentions were. My view with a smile is always, I'm going to state this in a very hard-edged way.
Sure.
I don't care about any of that.
Yeah.
I don't care about how you feel. I don't care what you're thinking. I want our relationship to be based on behaviors. I'm going to be able to evaluate you, and you're going to be able to evaluate me based on my behavior. And
that's foundationally so important to trust. And when I've heard you talk about your leadership style and approach before, you've mentioned this, that you do what you say you're going to do. There's high integrity to what, your behaviors and your words and your behaviors match. Am I hearing that right?
Completely. And when you determine, I don't need somebody to call me out if there is a divergence between what I said and what I'm going to do. I hope somebody will call me out.
Yeah.
I need that, but I hope I'll realize it and raise my hand and re-engage and say, guys, I said A, I meant B, because I'm doing B right now. Let's get on the B track, or whatever.
Back in the day, we played basketball and foul was called on you and you raised your hand.
You said, I got it.
Yeah.
Or if I caused a foul before somebody called it, I said, I fouled you, man. I grabbed your shirt. Yeah. My elbow was holding you back. Exactly correct. And that is gone.
Oh boy.
Today it's transactional and it's reinforced. Transactional meaning I can lay it out there and somebody's going to buy it. I'm going to buy what they see. And so I can take my Facebook page and become something I want to become. Yeah. And that perception is my reality, and nobody's going to call me on it. And that's kind of starts this cascading. It goes to
that's really interesting.
Goes to the notion of practices and customs. My concern in today's world, we're losing some of those practices and customs. And as a result of that, we're unmoored. I would have a conversation as a child and I would say X, Y, and Z, and I shouldn't have said that. I used a word I shouldn't have used. I swore I shouldn't have, I swore and I dropped an F-bomb, or I said something I shouldn't have said. I was corrected on it and I was told that's inappropriate behavior.
Yeah.
In other words, there's a standard. Well, we've lost a standard against which to evaluate our behaviors.
Yeah.
Not how we feel, but our behaviors. And as a result of that, behaviors are accepted across the board, which means ultimately we're unmoored and we don't have any customs. We kind of do our own thing. I don't want to say we all become narcissistic, but we all become, in many ways, we're not accountable. It's whatever.
Yeah, we are accountable to the moment of what we want, which
Yeah.
is which sounds as though you can't build a society on that. You can't build a family on that. You can't build a company on that. It's got to have high integrity.
Oh my gosh. I mean, you just nailed it. We've always, we are a nation of laws because we've embraced those, they're custom. We've embraced those laws. We've passed those laws. We're a nation of laws, and we must embrace that, or we run the risk of losing that. It becomes just kind of a crap game. We're just throwing crap against the wall, and whatever happens, happens, and everything's acceptable. And you go, wow. And my concern, probably at a top level, that, you know, I'm a very optimistic guy, but we deal in the world of some incredible crap. And you, okay, democracy is incredibly messy, but it also has a shelf life. And the shelf life of democracies is 250 years. And we are there. Democracies don't fail because of an external threat. They collapse internally.
Yeah.
So I pray that we're going to be okay and we're going to get through it. Because the last thing, without being too maudlin, the last thing, the thing that concerns me the most, at some point I die, I'm getting buried up at West Point. And it's in the people that I've been a part of burying at West Point, it's always in the winter. It's always gray. Collars are up. You know, the wind's blowing a little bit. Maybe there's a little bit of moisture in the air. Hands are being rubbed because you know, yet here you are trying to say goodbye. And I have this image where I'm getting dropped in the ground, and all my grandchildren are standing around, and my oldest grandson, who is living with us now.
Yeah.
Let's hope he's a 25 or a 30-year-old man. And I've got some more tread on these tires. And he's standing there with all his cousins. And they're all married and they have their own babies and life is moving along. But he goes, okay, first team, which is all the first cousins. Okay, first team. No, you're not on the first team. You know, the wives or the husbands have to go away. No, first team, come on in. And he put his arms around him. He goes, okay, listen up. Granddad was a good guy. He tried hard. We loved him. He thought he could play basketball better than he could. You know, his jokes really kind of were horrible. He was always on the edge a little bit, being politically incorrect or whatever. But he tried hard. But, you know, now this is 25, maybe 30 years from now. But, you know, at the end of the day, he really screwed this up. He left the world where our democracy's at risk. We're crazy people. Our economy is unaffordable. We have created, thank you for the reference, Foster, we have created a comfort crisis.
Yeah.
Where nobody's willing to step up and sacrifice to make it better.
Yeah.
And what are we going to do? Today, not 20, 30 years from now, today, our GDP is equal to our debt. That's unsustainable. How do you make hard, painful, ghastly, painful decisions to ensure that you can move forward? And you know, we've had this discussion. The only way behavior changes is through pain, not pleasure.
Yep.
We've got a comfort crisis. We want everything to be soft and cozy, and we want to be sweet to everybody. And we're going to stroke a check for that. We're going to go do this, and I want to do this, and I want to do that. What about us? Could you sacrifice a few of those eyes for us? Make the collective an important part of your life.
Yep.
Man.
So let's talk for a second. Thank you. I'm right there. Let's talk for a second about, let's turn the clock back 20 years. And you're taking over as CEO of, I'll pick corporation, Monsanto, and you've got a top level executive team of 10 people, and you're engineering a turnaround. Their performance is not what they want, so they need a very good, strong leader like you. How do you enter into that situation and begin to build trust with people? What else is there besides consistency of your behavior? What else do you do and pay attention to?
I think one of the most important things, and it's not addressed sufficiently, was not addressed sufficiently in my development as a leader, is the notion of vulnerability. And that, to your example, on that scenario, on day one, it's a matter of addressing those top 10 leaders and saying, look, I don't have all the answers. You collectively probably have all the answers. I need you to realize I need your input. And I will make no decisions immediately.
Yeah.
Everybody's job is safe. I need everybody's input so that we can acknowledge what the scope of the challenge is before we try to, quote, turn the corner or turn this around. I don't know what we're turning around to. Do we look right? Are we right? I don't know. I need your input, guys. And then I would, so it's the notion of vulnerability.
Yeah.
In a very practical way, I would then say, if you were me, what are the first three things, rule of threes? What are the first three things that you would embrace? Not necessarily change.
Yeah.
You embrace a change, or you embrace keep this. Put that to the side. Don't talk about that. That's okay. But here are a couple of things that we need to work on right now. And I would need that input. And then we'd need to, again, determine among those 30 things, top 10 leaders, what are the top three among those 30 things that we need to get to? You tell me, and then I'll tell you I didn't take this job yesterday. I took this job understanding that it was potentially a falling dart. Needed some help. I did my diligence. I liked what your core vision was, but your core vision, you started to put some restrictions on that for whatever reason. You kind of lost sight. You got over your skis in a couple areas.
Yeah.
And you failed to acknowledge that. So let's figure out what are those top three things that we can get to. You've got to be able to acknowledge, and I'll take full accountability, of course.
Sure.
I've got responsibility. I have authority, which means I'm accountable. And we'll start moving in that direction. So I look, because I've been a part of a team, albeit as a contributor.
Sure.
At CNN, let's be frank, they got rid of their CEO about a year and a half ago.
Yep.
They brought a new guy in. He lasted maybe 10 months. He got pushed aside. They brought a new guy in. That became very obvious to me because there were some immediate decisions that were made. And again, I was an outsider. I was a contributor.
Sure.
But the folks with whom I worked on a routine basis had to deal with this. I mean, they were part of the team. They were in the boat. They had oars in their hand. They're rowing.
Yeah.
There were some immediate decisions that disenfranchised a large percentage of the team, that put a whole host, by disenfranchisement, put a whole bunch of those folks at risk.
Yeah.
I mean, all of a sudden they went from, I am rowing with everybody else, and all of a sudden the boat I'm in and the direction I'm going is, we're being told it's wrong, or oars up.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now I guess I'm in the wrong boat. A boat with a fleet of boats, and I thought we were all kind of moving in this direction. Now I've been told you're at risk. Man, I don't know in those circumstances how most people, well, I would tell you how most people think, but that is, my behavior will become immediately counterintuitive. I will start to put up walls. I will stop starting conversations. Initiative is now shut down.
Yep.
I'm going to squat in place. I'm just going to hold in place. And I'm going to see what happens. You have scared the hell out of me.
Yeah.
And yet at that exact moment, in extremis, the announcement needs to be made. I need your help.
Yeah.
3 words. Do your job better than ever. I mean, let's just do your job and get going.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you may uncover that one thing that's holding us up.
Yeah.
I need you. None of those messages were sent. The place was sideways.
What you're talking about, I love this. You're talking about inquiry, curiosity, asking questions, vulnerability, opening yourself up, great listening. You're gonna tease out of ideas of others. Acknowledgement. I use the word regard. You regard them as important contributors. You listen. You want to hear what they've got to say. You've established kind of it's not communal, but a team goal. Hey, we're in this together. Let's, like you've established a we versus when I get stressed, I'm going back into my shell and I'm focused on the I. You focused on all of you changed that by your reaction to stuff.
What you've really described is the notion of, I use the term accountability, but accountability is continuous throughout the process, right?
Yeah.
But the evaluation of that accountability generally is after the fact, right? It's
Yep. Oh yeah. Yeah, sure.
And so the thing that I love, again, I mentioned probably not unlike you, growing up as a young athlete was very important to me. I never worried about blame. When there was a problem, I did everything in my power to try to solve that problem immediately. I use the example in football, when there's a fumble, you know what happens. 22 players are breaking their fingers to try to get to that ball.
Yep.
And there's no worry about blame or accountability.
Yep.
I mean, the ball's on the ground. I want to fix it. It's a free ball. I got to fix this problem. And then afterwards you go, okay, how'd you fumble it? What happened? How'd it go down? And you work through the steps. You get none of that.
Yeah.
In an organization that doesn't ensure that the behavior to support the organization is the most important and exceeds the importance of your personal interests or desires.
Yeah.
You got to subjugate that.
Yep.
Make it. And I want you to be the best you to show up, especially at this time, when I know you think in your mind that you're going to give it your all for the next 2 weeks, and then you're going to get a notice that says it's time for you to leave. And guess what? That might happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
But don't negotiate with yourself.
Yep.
Get
so
out there.
You mentioned that this notion of vulnerability is something you wish you had kind of learned earlier in your career. That word and approach applicable in the military?
Wow. Well, I've now been out of the military for over, a decade and a half. But the reason I stayed in the military for as long as I did is that I had bosses that that demanded my participation, which indicated to me that they didn't necessarily have all the right answers. That to me is the definition of vulnerability. And they never raised a hand and said, "Hey, I'm vulnerable."
Yeah.
But said, "Marks, what do you think about this?" And I went, "Wow, if I'm not going to get the lecture on how to do something, what I'm being told is, here are your boundaries. Help me figure out, this is what the solution needs to look like. Here's my word picture, but help me figure out what the cascading effects are, the steps needed in order to reach that." That's incredibly powerful. That's vulnerability. That's saying, I don't have all the solutions. And I wish the military would incorporate that. And then you'd end up with a bunch of people whining about, "Oh, we're not vulnerable. We're warriors. We got to get out there." Yeah, I got it.
Yeah.
I got it. But you're not out there alone. You don't have all the right answers. And I figured out early in my career, if I was the only guy talking, I was going to guarantee one outcome. We're going to screw it up.
There have to be edges or limits to that vulnerability. Let's call it a different word. Let's call it candor. I don't know. Let's call it something else.
Be inclusive.
What's that?
Be inclusive.
Yes. When you think about this notion about vulnerability, are there boundaries to it?
Oh, there are. There should. Well, of course, because it goes back to taking your example. I woke up this morning and I felt lousy, but I chose not to engage. I chose not to go to the office for whatever reason, legitimate or illegitimate. I struggle with that mightily. I struggle with that. I don't know, and I think there may be a whole host of societal and economic reasons why that happens. And I don't think it's just because we're on the heels of a pandemic. I think we'd been moving down this path, and it just accelerated over the course of 3 years.
Yeah.
We had a step function like, wow, where did that come from? I have to spend more time just kind of thinking about how somebody can acknowledge that I'm going to have a transactional relationship with you.
Yeah.
I've signed up. And nobody put a gun to my head. Nobody forced me. Nobody whipped me into this position to agree to this transaction and commitment. And it truly is that. It's simply a transaction. There's no sense of ownership greater than self that I want to be a part of. And that's the monster societal change that we're dealing with in my mind. Because if I felt I was a part of the team, doggone it, I'm going to show up. I'm not going to bail on my buddies.
Yeah, and that's the difference.
I don't understand how people can choose to bail on their buddies and just not do the work. Or I understand somebody goes, yeah, I got it done. I was supposed to be there for 6 hours, got it done in 2, so I'm out with the kids. Okay, but there was an expectation that you'd be available for that amount, but I got it. But to just say adios and walk away, you go, I don't get that. That's so.
Because I'm not feeling it today, boss. I'm just not feeling it today.
I know.
I don't want to, I don't need to, I don't have to. It's interesting too. This is totally unrelated. And I have to jump at the top of the hour, but
okay.
When somebody in this me society can go on TikTok and do a stupid little dance and make $300,000 a year, and we're trying to entice them into a minimum wage job to serve me my French fries on time, it's a tough equation. It's a really tough sell.
It's a hard sell. And that goes to the notion of customs and practices and commitment. Where is it? Are we going to see victory gardens like we saw in World War II? Remember the victory gardens?
Yeah.
The stores aren't going to have your veggies.
Right.
Grow your own veggies. You're contributing to victory. Where's that level of sacrifice? The acknowledgement that there's a crisis. I've got to modify my behavior, and I'm prepared to modify my behavior. I'm willing, not only I'm prepared, I'm going to modify my behavior because there's a larger cause, there's a larger benefit as a result. Somebody was asking the question, I mean, when do you make the very, very hard decision? Do you have to be on the edge of the precipice? And my answer was, I think you have to be falling into the.
I agree with you.
That level of pain, and then figure out that I can modify something before I have this crash landing. I mean, that's what it's all about. It's getting punched in the throat and realizing that did not feel well.
But I appreciate your time very much. This is really helpful.
If I don't mean to be presumptuous, but
please.
I'm very juiced with this. This is
Let's
great.
keep going. Yeah.
Yeah, if we can rearrange schedules or make it happen, you let me
Oh,
know.
I would love to. I just didn't want to be presumptuous and take too much of your time, but I'd love to continue.
Oh, man.
Spider, good to see you. I'll reach back out.
Thank you. Wonderful to see you. Thanks, Bob.
Thank you.
See you, man.
Okay, I promised, and I hope part 1 delivered great value. Some spider nuggets. Leadership does indeed require doing hard things and making tough choices and being willing to make sacrifices for the us or we. It's not only okay to be vulnerable, but in these uncertain times, it's a necessity for leaders. Take blame out of failure and see how quickly the learning accelerates. Finally, and I love this one, don't tell me what you stand for or make empty promises to me. Show me through your actions. Let's keep it going in part 2.
Thank you for listening to Stepwise. Stepwise is brought to you by Dr. Foster Mobley. Edited and promoted by Zetis. You can listen to more episodes wherever you stream podcasts. Find out more at fostermobleymt.com or follow us on social media at Foster Mobley. That's FOSTERMOBLEY. We look forward to having an inspiring conversation with you soon.